Today, guys, we're going to do area and perimeter of shapes that you probably know how to solve most of them. So we're going to do squares, rectangles, parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. Do all of that today. This page right here, the very first page in your notebook, this is your INSCAS reference sheet. If you notice, it says grade 7 on it, because you guys are doing a lot of 7th grade math. Does that make sense? So you guys needed the grade 7 INSCAS sheet. However, when you take your INSCAS in a couple of weeks, you will get the grade 6 INSCAS sheet for that time. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions on that? This paper, guys, you will always be allowed to use. Every quiz we take, every test we take, you will be allowed to use this sheet of paper. So nothing on it has to be memorized. Now, eventually, you'll probably memorize them just because you get used to doing them, and they'll get memorized. But everything is here. It does not have to be memorized. Questions before I move on? All right, let's go to our pink sheet then. We'll first start off with squares and rectangles. So right here, they give you guys the formula of squares and rectangle. What's the formula for squares and rectangles? And what's B stand for? And what's H stand for? Good. Okay. Then the square has a very specific one. It is S2. You can use either one and you will get the same answer, okay? What does S stand for? So what it means is side squared. So you're doing exponents, but you'll get the same answer no matter which formula you use. Is that understood? Okay. In this entire unit, you guys will be allowed to use a calculator. So if you don't have your calculator out, you can get it out. Especially since I forgot to tell you to get it out, so I'm sure most of you need to. Now, you will not always have to do it because some math you can do in your head, right? So those will be the easy ones. So what we want to do is we want to find the area of each shape. So what's this shape right here? It's a square. And to find square, we do what? What's my base? What's my height? So what are we doing? So area equals 6 times 6. You have to still show me the work. You can't just tell me the answer. I need the work to how you got it. What is 6 times 6? And then, guys, it's geometry. You must always label. There are 0 exceptions to that. So when we label area, what is always my label? It is always squared and whatever we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about what? So my answer is centimeters squared. Questions on that at all? Yes, Bennett. Yeah. Yep, that would work as well. We write centimeters squared, but we say squared centimeters. That's just how it is. It's weird. I know. But yes, SQ means squared as well. All right, this one. How do I solve this one? What do I do? I do base times height, which is what? 20 times 12 or 12 times 20. Does the order we write it in matter? No, because you'll get the same answer no matter what. You can use your calculator or do this one in your head. It all just kind of depends on how well you are with mental math. What's 12 times 20? And what's my label? Inches squared. So 240 inches squared. Does anyone know what we label something if there is no label? Like I don't say centimeters, I don't say inches, I don't say anything like that. But I still have to label. What do you think? Units. So write down units is the label if there is no label. That'll be true for this entire unit. Your label is always units if there is no label. If you don't tell me units,
units squared, units cubed, and you just leave it blank, I will have to take off points. So please always label. Any questions on finding the area of a square and a rectangle? I'm thinking that should have been review for everyone, right? At least I'm hoping so, fingers crossed. Okay, you do also have to find perimeter. So with your partner at your table, find the perimeter of those two shapes, please. Show, you can use your calculator, but show how you got your answer. Is that understood? Good, go. And here we go, 19. Tell me how to find the perimeter of the first one. And what do you get? So perimeter is not squared. So perimeter is just centimeters. Area is squared. So that is a big difference between them. So anytime we're talking about perimeter, I don't care if it's a wonky shape, I don't care what shape it is. If they're talking about perimeter, always just centimeters, just inches, just meters, just units. Area, no matter what type of area we're talking about, it is always squared. Always, always, always. How else could I have solved this problem instead of doing 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6? I could have also done what, Bennett? I could have also done 6 times 4, and I would have got the same answer and been correct. All right, perimeter of the last one. Number 4. How do you do perimeter of the last one? Bella, that's you. What'd you get? Questions, you guys. Okay. Continue moving on. Parallelograms. What is different from a parallelogram from a square and a rectangle? What is the difference there, Bella? In what terms? Okay, because a square and a rectangle have to have a what? Square and a rectangle have to have something very specific in order to be a square and a rectangle. A right angle. So in order to have a square and a rectangle, they have to have right angles. Do you guys all see that these are all right 90-degree angles right here? Okay, a parallelogram does not have to have that. All it has to have is the top and bottom are the same, your side and side are the same, and these lines, top and bottom, side to side, are parallel, aka the word parallelogram. Does that make sense? A square and a rectangle is a parallelogram. They're just specific types of parallelograms. But not all parallelograms are squares and rectangles. Does that make sense, guys? Questions on that? Beauty of a parallelogram is the formula is exactly the same. You don't have to do anything. The only difference is you have to know what the height is. So what's my base in this first problem? I have an 18, an 18, and a 16. What's the base? 18. So I know my base is 18, and I need to multiply it by my height. Well, am I multiplying it by 18, or am I multiplying it by 16? 16. Why 16? Why not 18? Abram? Absolutely. That is the perfect way to say it. So write this down, guys, because it's always going to be true no matter what the shape is. I don't care what the shape is. Your height must always be at a 90-degree angle. Always, always, always. Doesn't matter the shape. If it is talking about height, it must always be at a 90-degree angle. So now this is where you guys can use your calculator, because I'm sure most of you don't know 18 times 16 off the top of your head. I know I don't. And don't forget to label it properly. And what do we get? Find the perimeter of that problem. Go. You can work with your partner. All right. Number 2. How did you find the perimeter of this parallelogram? Why did you not do anything with that 16? Very good. So that height, guys, that dotted line, that doesn't make up the outside of your shape. So make sure when you do perimeter, you're only doing the outside of what makes the shape. And what's 18 times 4, Sophie? Label? Questions, you guys. Okay, the next one is tricky. Okay, I need my base. What's my base? It is 16. Why is it not 20? Eva? Very good. That 20, guys, goes all the way to that dotted line. And because if you notice and you look up top, 16 is just the shape, which means from here to here is 16. How much is that dotted line? Because 16 plus 4 makes 20. Does that make sense, guys, on why that one can be tricky? So be very careful when looking. Everyone find the area for me. And perimeter. Find area and perimeter for me. All right, guys, let's go over it. 22, how did you find area? Which is? Excellent. 16 is your base. 20 is your height. Remember, your height must be at a what? 90-degree angle. Do not do the slanted lines. They're not at 90 degrees. The height must be at a 90-degree angle. And 16 times 20 is, 16 times 20 is 320. 13, how do I find perimeter? And what are my sides? And you get? What's my label? Very good. Okay, guys, questions on squares, rectangles, parallelograms. How much of that was a review for a lot of you? Okay, cool. Let's go to triangles. Did anyone do triangles last year? They're not difficult. Okay? With COVID and everything, I don't know how much you guys got in terms of geometry because it's usually at the end of the school year. So we have area of triangles. The formula is listed right here. It's area equals 1/2 b times h. Well, what does 1/2 b mean? What operation is that? 1/2 times b. So it's like putting a multiplication dot right there. You're doing 1/2 times b times h. So what this is telling you is that the area of a triangle is half the area of a rectangle. So whatever you get for a rectangle, cut it in half and you have the area of a triangle. Because a triangle is made from half of a rectangle. And I'm going to show you some examples. You guys don't have to do this in your notebook, okay? But here's what I mean by that. If I go back to this front page, you guys see how I cut that square in half? Did it make 2 triangles? So if I take this 36, I want to cut it in half. What's 36 cut in half? What is it? 18, which means that the area of the triangle is 18 centimeters squared. Same thing with this one. I could cut this one in half. I have two rectangles, or not two rectangles, two triangles. Okay? Then I could cut this in half. What's 220 cut in half? Which means the area of this triangle is 120 inches squared. I can do the exact same thing with parallelograms. I could cut this one in half. I still have two triangles, so I would cut 288 feet in half. What's 288 feet cut in half? 144. And then I can do the same thing with this one. I now have two triangles. So if I cut 320, cut it in half, what do we get? 160, so the triangle is 160. Does that make sense, guys? So all we're doing with triangles is essentially finding the area of a square, a rectangle, or a parallelogram, and cutting it in half. So let's try this one. I have my area equals 1/2 times my base. What's my base? What number is my base in this problem? 20. Okay, what's the height? 8. Because what did we say height must always be at? A right angle. So this dotted line is your height because it is at a right angle. Does that make sense, guys? Yes. This is called a what type of triangle? It's a right triangle, so we already have the right angle in it. Does that make sense? So if they give it to you, you're good. If not, it's the line from the bottom of the base to the very tip of your triangle is your height. So bottom of your base, tip of your triangle. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, now here's the deal. With multiplying, can we multiply in any order we want and get the same answer? Yes. So here's what you can do. You can do half of 20. What's half of 20? And then we got to take 10 and do what with it? What's 10 times 8? And what's my label? So there's your area. We could have also done half of 8. What's half of 8, you guys? 4. And 4 times 20? 80. We could have also done 20 times 8. What's 20 times 8? 160. And then what's half of 160? So do you notice that it doesn't matter what order you go in? But you have to remember to cut it in half, because if you don't cut it in half, you didn't tell me a triangle, you told me a rectangle. Questions? Okay, find the area and the perimeter of both with your partner. Go. All right, perimeter of the first triangle, number 18. Tell me how to do that. Why did you not add the 8 centimeters? Very good. That is just the height. It is not on the outside of your triangle, so do not add it for perimeter. 21. Tell me how to find area of the next triangle. Excellent. That is correct. Any questions on how we did that, guys? Number 5. Tell me how to find perimeter. He's not here. Number 11. Tell me how to find perimeter. Which is? 12. 12 what? Feet. Good. All right, guys. Questions on triangles at all? All it is a rectangle, square, parallelogram cut in half divided by 2. Did that come back to anyone from 5th grade? Okay, no, yes, some no. That's fine. Okay, trapezoids is the one that I am assuming most of you probably did not talk about last year. Okay, maybe some of you did, but I bet most of you probably did not. Does that sound right? Okay, so area of trapezoids. They look scary, and the formula looks scary, but it's not. Okay, so first of all, we're going to cross out this formula because that's not the one we're going to use because it does not match up with your INSCAS sheet. And I want you guys to get used to the one that you're going to see on your INSCAS sheet, so that way you get used to it, okay? So the formula that's on your INSCAS sheet, that's the one that you're going to use, is area equals 1/2 times h. And then you're going to put parentheses, B1 plus B2, and you're going to close those parentheses. So here's what that means. What does B1 stand for? What does B2 stand for? So how many bases do you think there are? Okay, there are 2 bases in a trapezoid. Okay, and then H stands for height. And what did we always say height must be at? A right angle. So that's still true with trapezoids. Okay, your height still must go from the top base to the bottom base, or your bases could be on the side as well. So the side base to the other side base, but that line has to create a 90-degree angle. If it doesn't create a 90-degree angle, it is not your height. Is that clear? Okay, for your bases, you guys know how when we did parallelograms, and 18 and 16 were your bases, right? And the tops were always the same, correct? That's why we always had only one base, because top and bottom were the same. That's not going to be true with trapezoids. Okay, so your bases, so when you guys find the bases, are always parallel. You can tell me what the word parallel means. What's parallel mean, Sophie? Excellent. So 2 lines, whether they're side to side from each other or up and down from each other, doesn't matter, but they could go on forever and ever and ever, and they will never, ever, ever touch. So when I look at this trapezoid right here, do you see how these 2 side lines, if I kept them going, they'd eventually cross each other? So those are not parallel. But do you guys see how my top and bottom, if I kept those lines going forever and ever and ever, they would never ever touch one another? Those are parallel. And because they are parallel to one another, that makes them my what? Those are my bases. So 8 is a base and 16 is a base. It will always be, your bases will always be the top number and the bottom number, or they will be your side and your other side. They can't be like a side and a bottom. They can't touch each other. Does that make sense? So either top and bottom or side and side are your bases. Then the question is my height 11 or is my height 10? Why? Because it's at that right angle. Questions on identifying which are your bases and what is your height. Okay, so let's plug this into the formula now. So we have area equals 1/2 times the height. What did you guys tell me the height is? So 1/2 times 10. And then I'm going to times by whatever goes inside parentheses. And what goes inside those parentheses? Base 1 plus base 2. And what are my bases? So I'm going to write 8 plus 16. Do you think it matters what order you write 8 plus 16 in? Absolutely not. What do I do first? 8 plus 16, you must always add first because it is inside those parentheses. So what is 8 plus 16? So I now have 1/2 times 10 times 24. And what does it look like now? It looks like a triangle. So the only difference between a triangle and a trapezoid is a trapezoid has 2 bases that you have to add together. Once you've added them together, you follow how you guys did for triangles. So I like to do as much work as I can in my head. So I always think like, okay, what's half of 24? And then I'm going to take 10 times 12. What's 10 times 12? And what's my label? Feet squared. I could have done that multiplying math in a different order, and I should still hopefully come out with the same answer, and that is okay. So do you guys see how each shape, all we've done is add one more thing on top of it? So it's the same thing as prior, it's just adding one more step. Questions? Okay, with your partner, find the area and the perimeter of both problems, please go. 7. How'd you find perimeter of the first trapezoid? Very nicely done. Questions? 14. How'd you find perimeter of the second trapezoid? What? Very good. Questions on that one, you guys? All right. Lucille, how did you find area of the last trapezoid? Good. What's your height? Good. Tell me what you did. Good. 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 Very nicely done. Okay, so I know you guys couldn't hear Lucille, but this is what she said. You take 1/2 times 18, because 18 is that height. It's at a 90-degree angle. Then you're going to take 30 and 25, add them together. 30 plus 25 is 55. Then she did half of 18 first. Half of 18 is 9. Then she did 9 times 55, which is 495. No matter what order you did the math in, minus the adding part, you still should have got the same answer. Questions on trapezoids?